friends, my name is Kaylin and welcome back to my channel Thriving in Fiction. Today I'm going to be going over my wrap up for the month of May. So in the month of May, I read a total of 5 physical books and I listened to 3 audiobooks. 7 of them were fantasy and 1 nonfiction. So let's just get into it. So I thought I'd start with the nonfiction book that I listened to this month, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. So this is a memoir of Michelle Obama's life, and it starts with her childhood growing up in the south side of Chicago and follows her right through until the end of her husband's presidency in 2016. And it's really just a book about her life and little anecdotes and her stories and the things that she's learned and little nuggets of wisdom that she's learned throughout her life. I so enjoyed this book. It was very emotional at times and very enlightening. And she grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of material possessions. They kind of only had each other. She detailed her childhood and fighting for everything she got. I really connected with the constant thread of her thought of, am I enough? Will I be good enough? I thought that was such a humanizing part of her story, because who can't identify with, I think all of us at some point in our lives can identify with not feeling like you're good enough or not feeling like you're enough or suffering from imposter syndrome and stuff like that. So I really connected with that part of it. And the stories she told about her childhood, her family, her father struggled with MS for years, and listening to her talk about the positivity and the willpower that he displayed in living with that disease for as long as he did was both heart-wrenching and heartwarming and inspiring all at once. She talks about trying to find that balance between being a good wife and a good mother, but also wanting to live her own life and live the way she wants to, live the life she wants to, and having purpose in her life. And listening to her struggle with finding that balance, I think a lot of people will connect with. I liked seeing this side of the Obamas. I read A Promised Land by Barack Obama earlier this year, and that was obviously very focused on his presidency and the decisions that were being made in the Oval Office. This one really focused on their family and what she was doing in the East Wing at the same time. And I don't know, I just found it really inspiring. I find her to be a very inspiring woman. I admire that she shies away from the spotlight, that she did everything she could in her power to protect her children from that as well. She didn't want her life to be out there in the public, but at the same time, she felt her husband could do better for the world, so she played her role. So seeing her carve out her own and trying to make as much as a difference and fill that role as the first Black First Lady of the United States was inspiring. And listening to her find her own way of fulfilling that role was inspiring. And I think a lot of girls would be very inspired by her story. And of course, I do have a couple quotes from it. Like I said, one of the constant themes throughout her memoir was feeling like she wasn't good enough, like she didn't truly belong, or like she didn't truly belong, she didn't truly, like she wasn't enough to be in the spaces that she moved in. And one of the quotes that stuck out to me was, "Failure is a feeling long before it becomes an actual result. It's vulnerability that breeds with self-doubt and then is escalated, often deliberately, by fear." And knowing that one of the most successful and inspiring women also struggles with feelings of self-doubt and constantly wondering if she's good enough was really eye-opening and inspiring. And another quote that stuck out to me was, "Now I think it's one of the most useless questions an adult can ask a child. What do you want to be when you grow up? As if growing up is finite. As if at some point you become something and that's the end." When we're young, we feel like adults have it all together. Like once we become a certain age, then we'll know. But we never know. We never stop growing up. And I did listen to the audiobook, so listening to her tell her own story, I always enjoy listening to memoirs on audiobook. I love listening to people tell their own stories, and I highly recommend. And the next book I want to talk to you guys about is also an audiobook listen for me this month, and it is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is a dark academia book centered on Galaxy. She goes by Alex Stern, and she has lived a very tough life. She wakes up in the hospital, and she is the only survivor of a multiple homicide. And from there, she is offered a chance to attend Yale because of her ability to see ghosts and they're called Greys in this universe. So she can see Greys, and because of this ability, Yale offers her a chance to attend the university in exchange for her services, almost, in the ninth house. In this world, Yale has 8 secret societies, and they are all affiliated with different branches of magic. Alex is offered a chance to attend Yale if she becomes a member of the ninth house, and their job at the ninth house is to rein in and control the rest of the houses and make sure they're not abusing or overstepping the boundaries of their magic. And because of her abilities to see Greys, she has an advantage over other people to be able to do this job. And from there, she gets wrapped up in this greater mystery involving these secret societies at Yale. I really enjoyed following Alex and watching her navigate this world that was so foreign to her and slowly unraveling a mystery that is at the heart of this novel. I love female protagonists that have an edge, they have a darkness to them. I loved watching her be unapologetic about the darkness and the demons within herself, but she's also willing to sacrifice and be selfless for the people that she cares about in her life. I loved watching her outsmart all of these Yale kids with her street smarts. She has grit, she has determination, and she's a survivor. I love the plot and the pacing of this. There's 2 different timelines that are kind of woven together. There's one timeline in the fall when Alex first arrives at Yale, and she's just getting her feet under her and meeting her mentor called Darlington, and she's just kind of learning the ins and outs of the societies and her role and her responsibilities in the ninth house in Lethe. And you're also getting the perspective of her mentor, Darlington, at the same time. And you're getting the perspective of Darlington, her mentor, at the same time. You're also following Alex a couple months forward in the timeline in winter, and she's trying to deal with this mystery at the heart of Yale. And I thought these 2 timelines were woven together really expertly. The pacing in this book is excellent. I loved Alex. You also get some backstory on Darlington, her mentor. He's a lot more than what he seems at first as well. I loved watching Alex use her street smarts to outsmart everyone around her. And the last audiobook I listened to was Caste: The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. And I highly, highly recommend this book if you are looking for something to educate yourself on the caste system that has evolved in North America revolving around race. So this book really takes a hard look at the history of slavery and race relations and the caste system that evolved out of that basis. It talked about how new the concept of race actually is in our own history. If you have no frame of reference for the history of slavery and race relations and the ramifications of that we're still dealing with today, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a book that will set your veins aflame in rage. This book enraged me and educated me, and I think it's a book that everyone should probably pick up if they give a fuck about the state of the world at all. I don't know if I ever really contextualized race relations in North America. I'm saying North America because I'm in Canada, and it absolutely applies to us here as well. I don't know if I ever really contextualized that as being a caste system, and it absolutely is. If you look at the history and the opportunities and the way people defend it, it absolutely is a caste system. If you're looking to be equal parts educated and enraged, I highly recommend Caste: The Origins of Our Discontent. And the next book I finished during the month of May is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. And this is a multiple POV adult fantasy novel, and it's very different. So you have 2 main point of view characters, and their chapters are written in the first person. So I walked into the room, I did this, I did that, and then you have multiple other point of views from secondary characters, and their perspectives are actually third person. So she walked into the room, she did this, and I found it to be that was a risky move on the part of the author, but I found it to be very seamlessly done, because chances are you could miss it if you're not really paying attention, or you could get so far through the book and kind of realize that, oh wait, this is third person when I was reading first person. But I found it to be very seamless. And I understand why the author chose to do it this way, because you do have these 2 main storylines, and these smaller point of view characters are kind of connecting the dots between the 2 main storylines. So I totally understand why the author chose to do it this way. So one of the main perspectives in this Asian-inspired fantasy world is the Bone Shard Daughter, obviously, right there. She is the Emperor's daughter, and 5 years ago, she lost all of her memories. She only has the memories of the last 5 years of her life, and her story is kind of get to the bottom of the mystery of why she lost her memories, and she's also trying to learn more about the magic system, which is centered on these bone shards. It's a lot like Foundry-side. It's a lot like that magic system where you're kind of writing codes on these bone shards, and you're doing this to build up and make constructs, and so that these constructs will follow your orders that you've carved onto the bone shards. It's a very gruesome magic system, but it's really cool. So there's that. She's trying to learn about more about the magic system so that she has more power and has more control in her life. And she's also trying to get to the bottom of why she can't remember her life before the last 5 years. So you're following her as she's trying to navigate the magic system, her rivalry with her brother, and trying to remember her life before. And you're also following Jovis, who is kind of a hapless hero who just wants to find his wife. His wife was kidnapped years ago, and he's still trying to find her, and he kind of just falls into being a hero and starting to save children's lives. And he has a sweet, adorable little magical companion, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't my, my most favorite fantasy book ever, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to the second one coming out later this year. The magic system was really interesting. It was really well written. I enjoyed watching the author play between the two different perspectives, and I also really enjoyed the secondary characters' perspectives. You're following the highborn daughter of a governor and her lowborn girlfriend trying to reconcile their obvious love for one another while having these seemingly irreconcilable differences in how they view the world, while being so in love with each other, just having these such different perspectives on the world that they just clashed with one another. And I enjoyed watching them trying to come around, and you're kind of watching these people who love one another. You're watching one of them manipulate the ever-loving fuck out of the other one. But you see why, and you understand why, because the person that you love with the power to change things isn't seeing it and isn't comprehending what you've lived with, because she grew up as a gutter child. She grew up on the streets. She understands the pain and the suffering that is going on, while her girlfriend, whom she loves so much, doesn't. So watching them struggle and trying to reconcile that was really interesting, and yeah, it was a really good novel. I can't wait to pick up the second one later this year. And the next book I finished in the month of May is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. And this is an adult fantasy novel, and it is a dark, whimsical tale centered on Senlin, who travels to the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel is this ginormous tower with different levels, and every level is a different ringdom, so a different kingdom. So every level has its own customs, its own rulers, its own way of doing things. And Senlin and his new bride go to the Tower of Babel on their honeymoon and promptly get separated. And Senlin is a straight-laced, well-read, naive school headmaster, and he is very excited to go to the tower. He's read about it. He has romanticized it, and as soon as he gets there, he realizes that the reality of the tower is not how it has been portrayed in the literature that he's read. You're following him as he is trying to find his wife, and he slowly realizes that not everything is how it seems to be in the tower. And as you're reading, you get these flashbacks between him and his wife, and you watch them fall in love, and their relationship is so sweet. And Senlin is so naive, and I enjoyed following him and watching his rose-colored glasses come off, and for him to see the tower as it truly is. I loved watching him become the man he had to be in order to try to find his wife, to slowly lose his naivety and to develop an agency, and to realize that not everything in the world is as it seems in books. I loved the dark whimsy of the tower. It's almost a steampunky, strange, dark, whimsical world, and I really enjoyed being there. I loved watching Senlin slowly meet new people and bring them into bring them to his cause. in finding his wife. This is the first novel in a planned quartet, I think, and I do believe the fourth one comes out in November, so hopefully I can get to the other two before the fourth one comes out. And I do have some quotes to share with you guys. So as I said, Senlin is a very straight-laced, by-the-book character, and so this is another character who has lived in the tower talking to Senlin. I'm glad your self-righteousness has given you some exercise, but you forget. We are not such a tidy, reasonable, and humane race. Our thoughts don't stand in grammatical rows. Our hearts don't draw equations. Our consciences don't have the benefit of historians whispering the answers to us. And I just thought that kind of encapsulates the journey that Senlin goes on within this first book. He's so set in his ways, and so the way he sees the world is very black and white, and you slowly see him start to realize that his world in his village is very small, and to see that not everything fits in the tidy little boxes that he thinks they should. He's so sweet, and he just loves his wife so much that all you want is for him to find his wife. And I can't wait to pick up the rest of the books in the series and to watch him grow even more. I do wish I had more time with his wife. She's very interesting and very different from Senlin. She doesn't seek the background the way Senlin does. She's very lively and exuberant and outgoing, whereas Senlin is very much a wallflower. So I hope to see more of her in the coming novels. And the next book I read in the month of May was actually a new release, and it came out around the end of the month, and that is The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. And I loved the fuck out of this book. So the back of this book says it's for fans of Nicholas Ames's Kings of the Wild and Joe Abercrombie's The Blade Itself, and we all know how I feel about The Blade Itself and Joe Abercrombie. I loved it. And I loved this book too. You're following Kinch Na Shenek, who is a Takers Guild trained thief, and he owes the thief guild for his education. So it's this witty, dry commentary on student debt. I loved Kinch as the main character. You're seeing the world through his eyes, and it is full of wry sarcasm. He is such a witty character. He gets by on his education as a thief and his wits. The magic system is very unique and very much fits the grit of this world. And I also love the characters around him. So you kind of have the grit and the wit that Joe Abercrombie writes with the adventure and found family aspects of the Kings of the Wild. So it was just such a fun time. I also love this cover. It really does encapsulates like the adventure of the tale that you're kind of going on when you pick up this book. And I really loved it. You also had a touch of a romance in here, and it was just so much fun. I loved it. Highly recommend it. So the next book I finished in the month of May, and I will keep this one short and sweet because I already have a full review for the whole series up on my channel, and that is The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. It is so good. It is the last book in a trilogy. These characters are so flippin' real that they will feel like real people in your life. You experience this world through these characters. I highly recommend it. If you pick up anything based on my recommendation, please pick up Joe Abercrombie. I mean, he's not for everyone, but if he is, it is so worth it. So yeah, Last Argument of Kings, Joe Abercrombie. Highly recommend. And the last book that I read in the month of May, it is my first experience with this author. I mean, I watched the movies, but they don't really count. And that is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this was my favorite book of the month. Even though I read Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie in the same month, this one was my favorite. I absolutely loved following Bilbo on his adventure. I love the Shire and the Hobbits. The Shire feels like home now. I loved following Bilbo on his adventure and watching him grow and become more confident and experience the world. And I connected with his love of his home and just wanting to be by his fireside and to live his quiet, content life while also having this small part of him that wants to go on these grand adventures and experience the world, this grand world around him. I connect with that on a level that I did not know I would. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I just want to read you guys 2 quotes, one from each of my favorite books this month. So one from Joe Abercrombie and one from J.R.R. Tolkien. The juxtaposition of these 2 quotes kind of encapsulates everything I am as a reader, I feel like right now. So the first one from Joe Abercrombie is, "Proof is boring, proof is tiresome, proof is an irrelevance. People would soon rather be handed an easy lie than search for a difficult truth, especially if it serves their own purposes." And that just speaks to a very dark and ugly truth of humanity that we would much rather believe an easy lie than face a hard and difficult truth. And the next one by J.R.R. Tolkien is, "There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world." And these two quotes just, I have a dark, cynical view of the world, but I believe that in every cynic is a broken optimist, and those two authors together just kind of speak to that kind of contradictory nature within myself. Those are my two favorite quotes from my two favorite books of the month. All right, guys, so that has been my reading month for the month of May. Drop a comment below letting me know what your favorite read of the month was. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one, guys. Bye.